And I think for the other side of this is when people always go, what do I do if somebody's struggling? Okay, that is actually maybe even a better question. We are much better at noticing people who are struggling than we think we are. When you notice that, call them and share. Don't necessarily put the onus on them to tell you how they're doing. Open up first.
Showing up and being present.
Being present and just connecting. So if you're struggling or you notice somebody's struggling, the antidote, at least short term, is connection. But that's hard to do. It's hard because people who hurt oftentimes don't want to be a burden. And so they're not necessarily going to reach out. They don't want to burden. I don't want to call you and be a bummer all the time. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, the all the time part of it. But I would argue that if you called me, it would telegraph to me that you think I possess some wisdom, maybe.
Of course.
You telegraph to me that you trust me, that I'm a true friend. And I think people who are reticent to make that call forget that actually the person you want to call are probably going to be grateful that you did, feel honored.
That's the other side of it, is your reaching out for help is very rarely a burden. It's actually an honor. And it makes your friends feel good. It makes your friends feel like they can show up for you, and it endears that connection and deepens it. And so that bond, who do you call when you want to cry, is created, And men especially have a hard time with this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We just had a guest on, Vanessa Van Edwards, who said that women, when they connect, they want face-to-face.
Right.
Men want side-by-side.
Right.
They go to a ball game together.
Yeah.
They watch a game together, or they play pickleball, but they're not really looking at each other as much as, you do. You're an evolved guy, and we're good friends, but I think a lot of guys are a little bit afraid of that, deep connection that comes from.
We're just not taught how to do it.
Yeah.
Our culture does not give us that from a young age, and we could unwind this issue for days, and I'm very passionate about it. But the patriarchal system that we live in, which, by the way, isn't all bad, has raised Obama was talking about it recently, where it has raised a culture of boys and men who are essentially emotionally stunted, right? And then we get to later in life when we're expected to do a whole handful of things, and there's no, in essence, validation for that work. And then in order to get validated, we seek out money, power, and sex, essentially. And we exert those levers over society to feel seen. And when we can't access those things, we are deeply angry, and even angry when we can. And then we start joining the Proud Boys and shit like that because it gives us a place to belong.
I think it's important to realize that we're evolutionally hardwired to seek the versions of power, money, and sex.
Yeah.
That's what got our genes in the next generation. That's how natural selection works. The people who survive to procreate are the ones who have the resources, the ones that have the power to, conquer the next city for resources, and the ones that get the sex to get their genes into the next generation.
Yes.
To a certain extent, I don't even blame culture. Men, we're probably hardwired to be sort of aggressive and wary and not necessarily all heart-openingly connecting with other men. I think that we have to override that. And we realize that in a world where we don't have to compete for food, we don't have to compete for a place to live. And in certain places around the world, we don't have to compete for safety. And connecting with other men is joyous and brings happiness.
But here's the thing: you just said we're not conditioned, we're not programmed to do that, and I would push back. I'd say we are not taught how to do it from a young age. And that's just my feeling about it, because
I agree 100%.
Because when I do it, I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think it is innate. And I think if you look back, I think sort of that history that you're saying about conquering, and yes, but also we had tribal cultures where men were constantly in contact, where we were communing as groups of just men, and we were sharing big experiences. It wasn't individualistic.
Yeah, but not the next village over. If you're a Turkana in Northern Africa and a Pakot who lives, 2 villages away, and they're mortal enemies.
Right.
To be really trusting and open your heart to, if you're Turkana to Pakot throughout much of history, you'd end up impaled with a spear.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you go over heart opening to your neighbor that hates you. I'm saying that's one aspect of our evolution. But the other aspect is the tribal.
Well, if you're a Democrat, do you open your heart to Republican?
Absolutely. Fuck yeah. 100%.
Even though he hates you?
Yeah, 100%. I don't, again, define an enemy and you become one. You do, like instantly. Define an enemy and you become one.
Does that work the other way? Define a friend?
Quite possibly. At least you're no longer an enemy. He might still hold you as an enemy, but you're not exerting that sort of energy towards him.
Yeah, I like that.
Or them. So yes, like, look, what I'm more interested in is the stories that you've inherited and have been told that have formed your beliefs. Because you're human to me. Your beliefs, they might be disparate, but I don't really give a shit about those beliefs. I'm curious about how did you get there? Because that's a place we can explore together. And if we can get in that community and I can hear how you got there, you're not going to convince me that it's right, but at least I'm curious. And in extending that curiosity to you, I invite you into a space where we can actually connect heart to heart. And you see it all the time. People do this all the time where they take out, you're not at the rally anymore. You're 2 people sat at a table and having a connection and having a conversation. Well, tell me how you were raised. Okay, well, that gives you a whole bunch of information and insight.
All right, if you're looking for your next actionable step to stop wishing and start doing, go ahead and click the video on your screen right now. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so you can keep getting the practical advice you need to live longer and better. Be a huge favor to me. And we'll see you in the next episode. I guarantee you'll like it even better than the one you just saw.